Hello, this is Trisha Weekly. I am currently the assistant principal and 8th grade math teacher here at Germantown Elementary. I teach the regular 8th grade math class as well as the advanced algebra 8th grade math class this year. This is my 7th year in the profession, and I have taught 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, pretty much any math class you can think of in a junior high. So today I'm going to be going through some strategies that will potentially help you kind of expand your repertoire of strategies and reasoning to communicate to your students as well. One thing I want to say before we jump into it is to keep it real, because you're going to see a lot of strategies and strategies that you may or may not have used before, and if it's new, I encourage you to try it out at some point in time, and maybe this year isn't the year. Maybe things are just too much right now, and that's okay. I want to encourage you to take things, small steps at a time. So if you're able to start implementing these strategies, that's awesome. The goal is to definitely implement more and more as the years go on, but definitely just handle what you can handle. You know you best. So as you're looking at these strategies and you're like, okay, this is a little overwhelming, it's going to be a little overwhelming. It was overwhelming for me too when I kind of jumped into this and found all these strategies and started implementing them in my own classroom. And I'll tell you that it is just something that takes time. And we weren't taught this way. At least I wasn't. If you were, then kudos to you. But I wasn't taught this way with lots of models and hands-on type of things. So I had to teach myself how to teach it to my students. So that takes time, and it takes a little time to master that as well. So just be easy on yourselves and make sure that you're implementing what you can when you can, but just keep it real for yourself. Another thing I want to kind of point out is as we get going, you'll notice that in the 6th grade portion, there's much more as far as strategies go. There's much more concrete type of things, and as we get into like the 7th and 8th grade sections, you're going to see a little bit less, just because as you're getting into a higher level of math, things get a little less concrete and a little more abstract, whereas you're doing a little more solving algebraically and a little less with other strategies as far as hands-on kind of goes. But we do try to keep it as hands-on as possible because we want our kids to be building that solid understanding of why the math works. That's the whole point of using different strategies, is to give them a solid basis of why this works the way it works. So I will jump right into it. If you scroll on your slideshow, the strategies will start with the 6th grade. And you'll see the topic here. So you'll see ratios for the first one here. All of the videos that I've linked are all for you as a teacher to kind of experience the different strategies. Some of them may be appropriate to show to your students, and some of them might be a little overwhelming to show to your students. So I want to make sure that you know kind of upfront that these are more for you as a resource. And you can always just go on YouTube or Edpuzzle or even use your Study Island, that lesson portion, and use some of those videos to kind of isolate a certain skill that you're wanting to hone in on. I tried to keep it as kind of separate as possible, but you'll notice like for this equivalent ratios, the tape diagrams and double number lines are in one video. So even though tape diagrams and double number lines are two different strategies, I just found a video that had both of them in it for your reference, so you could see what both strategies looked like. So all you'll really do is just click on the videos and they'll get started. I'm not going to sit here and make you watch all of the videos as I'm talking over them, because you are perfectly capable of picking the videos that you need to look at. And I'm sure that a lot of these strategies you're already using, but hopefully you'll find something new as you're walking through this as well. I go through percent, so percent proportion, equation, again, double number lines, tape diagrams, and you'll see that a lot of the same strategies kind of throughout this, but it applies to like a different skill. It applies to a different standard. A huge resource for you is your Study Island. We have Study Island here, and it is a godsend. I cannot encourage you enough to check out those lesson portions A lot of times they've upgraded and they have some interactive things in there for your students. They have videos, they have little, example problems as well. And you'll see I have linked some of the study island as well, just because it's just quality material. And their questions are great. They're challenging, they're rigorous. I cannot speak highly enough of study island. So again, as you go through this, you'll see models, and then you'll see standard algorithm. And this is typically how we set this up. So even when you're teaching, you want to make sure that you are introducing the topic or the skill with the models first. Okay, so that includes, like for fractions, you have like these kind of rectangular models. You also have number lines. You can have, again, these are just more rectangular kind of models, kind of like tape diagrams. But you want to start out with models so they have that basic understanding. They can kind of visualize what's going on when they get to the standard algorithm. So it's not like they're not learning how we learned it. It's just they have a better understanding because they're using the models and those visuals, those concrete type of things, in order to get a basis to understand how that standard algorithm is actually working. Instead of just saying, here, with dividing fractions, keep, change, flip. Oh, okay. Well, first of all, we want to use math vocabulary, so we want to make sure that we're saying the reciprocal. So we're multiplying the reciprocal. That's another thing that I tried to choose videos that used that kind of language. So you can see here in this video, it's going to tell you multiplying by the reciprocal, not keep, change, flip, because we want our kids to be able to speak intelligently and mathematically. Another thing is when you're watching these videos, you'll notice I've used a lot of Learn Zillion videos. And this you can just type like on YouTube and type in, look, Learn Zillion, and then whatever. And a lot of times you're going to find good quality standards-based videos that apply to whatever you're looking for. Now, I won't say all the time, but Learn Zillion is a great resource if you can find a video by them. As you go on, again, you can kind of sift through this. I don't know if you teach multiple grade levels or just a singular grade level, but it's all kind of titled at the top for you. Equivalent expressions, so that's when we're kind of getting into algebra tiles. And algebra tiles we'll use 6th, 7th, 8th grade. I know that they use them in high school as well a lot of times. So these are strategies that you may be starting now, it may be new now, but it will all ultimately help them as they get kind of further in their math career as well. Let's see. We have more algebra tiles for solving one-step equations, and you'll see in 7th grade, you're going to have more algebra tiles for solving multi-step equations. All right, getting into 7th grade. So again, this video has multiple, like the verbal description, table, graph, and equation all in one video. And that's meant for you as a teacher to see all of the different strategies, whereas if I were to show it to a student, it might be a little overwhelming because that's a lot of strategies in one little video. The 7th grade one, okay, so I remember teaching 7th grade, and integers, adding, subtracting, any of the operations with integers or rational numbers was hard. And I think it's still hard. And even with my 8th graders, it's still hard. So I think that that's something that the more that we can do real world examples and having that solid foundation before we just jump into integer rules, the better off we're going to be. So I've included just an example of how to subtract a negative number. And this is an awesome example. It's about a hot air balloon and sandbags. And if you take away a sandbag, their hot air balloon actually goes up. So using those types of situations and real world types of things to help your kids think about it, because using integers, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing, that's very abstract. So the more that we can kind of make it concrete for them, the better off you're going to be. So again, this video has both the counters and on a number line. So those are two separate strategies, but this is a great video to show the different zero pairs, how that works, the positive and the negative counters, but then it also shows the number line as well. So with the examples, it uses the counters, and then it also shows you with the number line. So again, as a kid, this might be overwhelming to see counters and number line, but as a teacher, it's good to see both of them kind of in play and how they kind of relate to each other. Now, after we do all of these models, we want to make sure that we are still getting back to like that standard algorithm. We're still getting back to kind of the rules, and that is included as well. But definitely do not start with the rules. You don't want to start with the standard algorithm or start with just the plain integer rules. You want to make sure that you're using these other strategies first to build that for your students. Same thing with multiplying and dividing. There are the counters and number line. It also gives you the integer rules afterwards. Another resource that you'll see is this Geogebra, and this is just an online resource that has lots of interactive types of things. So you'll see some adding and subtracting integers, and these are things that you can just like email a link or post on Google Classroom or get to your students through like a QR code, and they can just kind of practice and play around with how integer rules work. It shows them how it works on a number line. It will show some real world things with temperature. Honestly, the further you get down though on Geogebra, the kind of weirder it gets. So I would kind of stick towards the top of the list of integers here, and kind of, there's vertical number lines and horizontal number lines. They even have little quiz types of things to see how you're doing. So these are just good like interactive things if you're looking for another resource to have your students kind of play around with. All right, moving on. So here's where I kind of reference Study Island a little bit more. But again, Study Island's a resource even if I don't link it up here. So with the adding and subtracting rational numbers, so it's super important to make sure that they have the integer kind of basis first before you jump into rational numbers, because rational numbers throws kids for a loop, I feel like, every single time. Those decimals and fractions, they see them and they're like, oh my gosh. But I think Study Island does a good job, and this will just bring you to the Study Island login. So you'll have to go ahead and log in yourself. But I suggest going to the 7th grade, math, of course. And then all of these here, the addition of rational numbers, subtraction, properties of addition and subtraction, all of these here, and the number system, all of these have great resources. So if I click on properties of multiplication and division, I can go to this lesson portion, and okay, so it's kind of like a kid-friendly version. It gives you videos to look at, talks about different rational numbers, talks about those rules. So again, that's why it's important to have those models, because once they have the models down, then they can get the rules down, which also leads them to be able to do these rational numbers and do them well because they have a solid understanding. Let's see. After there's a video, you can move on to the other pages. So like, let's apply. All right, so another video to kind of practice along with your students if you'd like. Some just different properties, so different examples of properties that they may use. So Study Island is a great resource. I definitely recommend checking out this lesson portion if you're looking for videos as well, because this is all very standards-based and kid-friendly. Plus, you guys already have Study Island, so might as well use that resource. Again, more Study Island there. More Algebra Tiles. You'll see that as kind of a multi-use tool that we have a lot of times. Let's see here. Okay, so getting into the 8th grade. So using different kind of tools in order to graph some lines. So using that XY table to graph a line in slope-intercept form, or a horizontal and vertical line, and then just using the equation in order to graph. So those are a couple of strategies there. 8th grade, a huge one for 8th grade with different strategies is systems of equations, and that's using graphing, substitution, and elimination.